welcome to VOX Guitar Amplifier Repairs, Reading, England. Stuart Smith here as always, and on the bench we've got a VOX AC15 TV Front, like television front, 1961. Very rare, and I don't think I've ever actually seen one come into the workshop, not the TV front one anyway. Lovely old amp. Apparently it works okay. The customer just wants me to give it a check over and see if anything urgent needs replacing. Of course, with an amp like this, all of the resistors will be old, carbon, out of tolerance. We need to check the HT caps, and really it's a question of what does the customer want to spend on the amp to get it going. Let's have a little look around the amp, because it's not quite as it seems, I think. Maybe people watching this will know more than I do, but let's have a quick look at the amp now. Okay, here we are on the front, and there's the classic TV face. The grill cloth I think is original, so it looks fairly kind of worn, well, you know, slightly old and stained. However, this VOX logo is not correct, so I think it probably looks like it used to. In other words, this is the correct look of the logo. I'm not an expert on that, to be honest with you, but I think this is a brand new one that's been purchased and put on there. It's just too shiny and too nice. Whilst we're looking, the Tolex here, we'll have a look on the top in a minute, but the Tolex here is suspiciously nice. So if you look around here, there's hardly a mark on it. It could be original 1961, but look down the side here, there's not a mark on that Tolex. It's mint. And have a look on the top. Here we go again, mint on the top. Look, you know, slightly dusty and dirty, but there's no scuffs and scratches. So if this is a 60-year-old Tolex, I'd be very surprised. So I think this has been re-Tolexed. The top is also very, very nice. Has this had a new fascia panel made? If you were going to re-Tolex it, I think you probably would put a new fascia plate on here. There's not a mark on this, so either this has been in some sort of storage for 60 years, or someone's had a go at it and tarted it up a bit. I'm not sure which, and I'm not qualified to make a judgment. Maybe you'll know better than me on this. Right, now let's take the back off and see what's inside it. And here's the plate on the back, AC15 serial number 4482. Again, that plate is in extremely good condition, so I suspect that is the original plate. Obviously it's got a scratch across here, but for a 60-year-old plate that's not looking too bad. Could it be this is original? Maybe when we take this back off here we'll be able to see if it's been re-Tolexed. So of course it's easy just to take this plate off and re-Tolex and put it back on again. So that might be what's happened. Speaker looks like the original speaker, which is important. They had this blue kind of speaker cover on. I think it's Jennings. No, sorry, Jennings is of course VOX. I think this was a Jensen speaker in this amp, not 100% sure. So right, let's proceed and get the back off and see what we've got inside here. I thought before I took the back off, actually I'd just power it up to see what it's doing, and it's come on. It's a little bit hummy, a little bit noisy, so it's working. Channel 1. It's quite hummy. Ooh, when I turn the brilliance on. Not quite sure what that switch does, brilliance. Top cut is like a tone control. Vicious tone control, that really does cut the top. Quite a bit of hum there. Oh dear, that's really hummy on the brilliance side. Okay. And so let's turn down channel. You've got to watch it on these VOXes. They have these 4 or sometimes 6 inputs, two different channels. And if you leave one channel turned up without anything connected, you get hum. So you need to turn down the channel you're not using. It's a bit hummy, channel 1. Nice, actually. So that's okay, channel 1. So let's turn channel 1 down now and go to channel 2. Bit more hummy than channel 1. Really bright sound. Or chimey. Now, vibrato and tremolo. None of that seems to be working at the moment. Yeah, switch speed control. Okay. There is a foot switch. Do we need to use that? Nothing on the vibrato tremolo there, so that's an issue. Okay, I think we now can proceed to take the back off. Right, here we are inside, and looks 100% original to me. I don't think anything has been done on this amp. I can't even see a single electrolytic that's been changed. The customer wants to keep it as original as possible, and you know, that's all very well, but so much of this will be out of tolerance. It's kind of hard to know where to start on an amp like this, to be honest. Every single resistor you see there will be out of tolerance. It'll be high by 10 or 15 or sometimes 20%. All the electrolytic capacitors are 30 years past their date. We haven't even seen the HT caps yet. I'm quite sure where they are on this amp. There's one there, but I can't believe that's the only one. We don't know what the status of the valves is. I think that's probably the next thing to do. So I'm going to disconnect the speaker at this chock block thing here and take the chassis right out. And let's have a look at the valves, because that will tell us something actually. If the valves are all original PMs, Mullards and whatever, that will tell you this amp hasn't had anything done on it for 60 years. But if we've got some new valves in there, that will tell us at least someone's had this chassis out and done something. So anyway, that's definitely the next thing to do. And here we are under the underside of the chassis. Not a lot on here actually. Here are the HT caps. There's a dual cap there, look. Not showing any signs of particularly leaking, and we've got a couple more here. We've got one here, and again they look okay. It's amazing how long these caps can limp on for actually. But what we can do is power it up and just stick a capacitor across each of these and see if the hum improves, and if it does we will probably need to replace the capacitor. I need to get a schematic on this as well, because I'm not totally clear what's going on here. I guess there's a couple of EL84s in push-pull and a rectifier valve. That's probably the rectifier valve there doing the HT. Yeah. Have to check that. And this looks like maybe the two EL84s. Bit of a funny arrangement. I'm not quite sure what's going on here with this. I mean, it looks like a standard cathode bypass arrangement where you've got a power resistor and a bypass capacitor. But yeah, I'll get the schematic out, I think. We'll have a quick look, see what's going on there. Right, so it looks all original. I think these are original. Don't look like they've been replaced. Again, not 100% sure there. probably original, so I don't think anything's been done on this amp. Let's flip it over and see what valves it has in it. I'll take the valve covers off and we can have a little look along the valve complement. Again, just looking at this faceplate here, suspiciously brand spanking new, isn't it? And look, it's just an aluminium faceplate. I think that's been replaced. I cannot imagine that that is 60 years old. So I think someone's put a new faceplate on there. Right, let's take these valve covers off and have a look, see what we've got. Whilst we're here, yes, look, we've got two EL84s, someone's marked on the chassis there, two EL84s and a rectifier, EZ81 rectifier. These are GE, I think, yeah, so these are, well, there's one GE and one, God knows what those, can't see at the moment, so they're not a pair. So at the very least we'll be taking those out and putting them on the meter to see if they're a matched pair. But meanwhile, let's see what we've got underneath here. Well, I think the valves are original. Mullard look. This is, I think, something like a Philips Mini Watt, M-I-N-I-W-A-T. Haven't come across that before. Mini Watt, but anyway, it's a Philips. This is another Mullard look. It says Mullard there. This, I don't know what this is, CV4004, I don't know what make it is. It'll be effectively an ECC83, and another Philips, I think, Mini Watt in there. These are, I believe, the original valves, with a possible exception of, I think, maybe one of these power valves has been replaced, or both at some point. Not totally sure. Right, so that's a good old look over the amp. I think we know what we're looking at here. I now need to go back to the customer and say, look, what do you want to do here? This is the standard problem with these old amps. How much do you want to spend? We can sort of, you know, get it going. I can test all the valves, and if they're working, we'll just pull them back in. See if these are a matched pair. If not, we'll put a matched pair in. So that's one thing we can do. No point in sort of throwing away a Mullard and putting in a JJ. So we'll leave those there, and then it's a question of how much he wants to spend on. I've got to get the vibrato and tremolo working, and that can be tricky because basically you've got an oscillator that's not oscillating, and that can be a variety of reasons causing that. Not very straightforward to get oscillators to oscillate again. And then of course you've got all these, you know, how much do you want to do in terms of out of tolerance resistors. I think I know what he's going to say. He wants to keep it as original as possible. And he'll probably want to the bare minimum to get it going. So anyway, let's make the phone call and see what he has to say. Righty-ho, well, we have a schematic which is slightly better than nothing, but not a lot. It's not a great quality really, and these schematics are quite hard to follow sometimes. They're not really easily laid out. That basically, here's a normal input look, and it goes into an EF84 as a preamp valve, quite an old valve nowadays. That just gets fed through to I think this is the phase splitter here. Yep, and feeding these power valves in push-pull and cathode bias. So I was right about that. It is a cathode biased amp. So that you have a fairly straightforward amplifier there with that. All of this gubbins here is to do with the second channel, the vibrato tremolo channel, and then that has its own separate preamplifier, in this case a 12AX7, which is interesting, not an EF86, very odd, but there you go. And then we have a couple of valves. I think this valve here is doing the oscillation, so this is an oscillator valve. The giveaway here is usually this 3 capacitors in series here, which give enough phase shift to cause the oscillation. So this is an oscillator. I think this one is a kind of a mixer, so basically, or a modulator. So it's taking the oscillator signal out of here and modulating the amplitude of the sound. Not 100% sure about that. I haven't spent too long looking at this. Not quite sure what this is. Someone will know. It's obviously a high-pass filter. Capacitor, resistor, capacitor, resistor, capacitor, resistor, capacitor, resistor. That's like a 4-stage high-pass filter, that. Don't know why they've got that there. Someone will know and put it in the comments. And here's the volume for the vibrato channel. Gets mixed in here, look, to drive the output. So you either have the output from here, which goes into this half of the 12X7, or you have the output from here, which goes into this half of the 12X7. The rest of it, we've done the power tubes, output transformer, EZ. Looks like EX81 that, but it won't be. I'm sure it's an EZ81. But definitely for all the world looks like EX81 that. Oh well. Rectifier valve and yeah, producing the HT. Smoothing capacitor on-off switch here. The HT, I think it's slightly off screen here. The HT, a couple of smoothing caps and stuff produce the HT. I think it comes back in here. Again, see, it's quite hard to follow these kind of diagrams. You have to really, for example, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. This is a very funny area of the diagram here. What's this line here? This line going up the middle here seems to sort of duplicate this line coming down here. I don't know what that is. Weird. Nope, no idea. But yeah, it doesn't make it easy working on these things. And of course, you look at this and you think, okay, where exactly is you know, C37 or something? Not easy to work on. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do, I've had a word with the customer. And as expected, he wants to do the absolute, keep it as original as possible, but if something needs doing, do it. So I'm definitely going to change the output valves. They are a motley pair. We'll change those. And then I'm going to test all of these valves here and keep everything we can and change everything that's faulty. So that's my next job. Before I do that, I've gone through the diagram. I made a note of the valves here. What they are and what they do, and to make sure we have the right, I'm sure you know this, but there are dozens and dozens of VOX versions. An absolute nightmare to work on because you never know what you've got. Everyone and their dog took over the VOX Corporation and produced their idea of a VOX amplifier, and so it's very hard to get schematics and to work out exactly which model you've got here. Anyway, this one seems to have 8 valves, and it does have 8 valves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And a 1959 version, this is the 1960 circuit apparently. The 1959 version of this, so that only has 7 valves, so just shows you how quickly they change these things. Now, of course, mapping this V1, V2, V3, etc. onto here is obviously not so straightforward. This is obviously V1, the EF86, but of course V3 and V4 are these two. I mean, why on earth did they not make it V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or something? But so we need to find out what these valves are and try to match them up if we can to this here. So for example, V6 is a 12 AU7 and ECC82. So if we can find the ECC82 here, we'll have located V6. The others are all 12X7s, V1s and the F86. So we don't really know which. It's not going to be easy to find out which of these V2, 5, and 7 are these. So I want to try and identify the 12AU7 V6 if possible, because then we can start to test all of these valves here and put them on the tester and see if they work. Let's see if I can find that one. I've made myself this little crib sheet here which matches this, so I can start now working out which valve is which. Okay, well, let's mark them up as we find them. So this is an EF86 and this is an ECC83. It's a shame the markings on these valves are so poor. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's an ECC83, but boy oh boy, is that tough to read. You know, ECC, that's definitely an 8, and I think that's probably, just got the 2 bars, I think it's probably a 3. I think we probably have to assume that's an ECC83. What's this? This is a CV4004. I just forget what that valve is off the top of my head. I'll look it up. I think that is also an ECC83. Let's just have a quick look. Right, according to the Valve Museum, the CV4004 is the UK government code for the commercial special quality version of the ECC83. Bottom line, ECC83. So we can put that one down as an ECC83. Exactly where they are on the circuit, you know, V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we don't know at the moment. What about this one here? A Mollard M8136 CV4003. That's interesting. So that's CV4003. I wonder, we're going to have to look up what that is. M8136. Let's have a look. Right, again, according to the Valve Museum, the CV4003 is a special quality version of the ECC82. So that's the ECC82, and by the way, you can buy one from Watford Valves for £144, should you be interested. I'm just going to put a 12AU7 in there if it's faulty. So that is our 12AU7 ECC82. I'll put ECC82 12AU7. That's the code for that. So that is our 12AU7, and we can, assuming these valves are in the right position, which is always not much fun, I think we can call that V6, because according to this, the 12AU7 is our, what I call my mixer modulator. And this one here, that's 12AU7 there, and it's the only 12AU7, and it's there. So that's assuming it's in the right position. That has to be V6. We know that's an EF86, so in theory that has to be our V1. Bizarre, but there you go, V1. Finally, this would surely have to be the phase splitter in this final position here. That'd be insane not to have that right next to the power valves. So I'm hoping this is another look, CV4004. So that is another ECC83, which I believe to be the phase splitter. So we put that down, ECC83, and if that is the phase splitter, it is V2. Okay, so far, look, we've got V8, V3 and 4, V1, V2 and V6. So we've got 4 and 5 here, unknown at the moment. What do they do? 4 and 5? Not 4 and 5, beg your pardon. V1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7. V5 and 7. So the first preamplifier for the second channel, the vibrato channel, and the oscillator valve. So in other words, that would be the first two here would be this and this, yeah, and followed by V6, which would sort of make sense. Look, so basically this whole section here, if we're right, is to do with this preamplification, oscillator and mixer. Sort of makes sense. Which is which, I don't know. Again, I'd be amazed if that wasn't the first channel preamp V5, but God knows really. Right, so that's good. So now we're in a position to test all these valves and see if any of them are not working, and we can also check our EL84s and see if they are working and are a matched pair. So I won't bore you with that. I'll go away and do that and report back to you. Right, I've tested the output valves. This was what was in there. This one is okay, amazingly. This one's absolutely shot. had about a third of the emission of this one. So we're going to chuck this one away, or rather give it back to the customer. Let me just do that now to isolate it. I'll just put it in a plastic bag full of bits I'm going to give back to him. And as luck would have it, in my second-hand tube store, I've got a VOX EL84, and would you believe it has exactly the right bias current to match this one here. So we've got a matched pair there. So I'm going to put those in. That'll save the customer some money. I want to keep this as original as possible. It'd be very easy just to chuck these out and put a brand new pair of valves in at 50 quid these days. But if we can keep the price down, that would be good for the customer. So we'll pop those back in. And now we have a matched pair of tubes, which is good. Tested the first valve. Comes out good, actually very good. So that's going to go back in, and it kind of bodes well for the other valves as well. Number 2, again the ECC83. This was this CV4004. So let's test that. This also tests good. Not bad after 60 years, is it? Whatever. So finally, well, not finally, we'll do this one. So this is the 12AU7. This is the mixer valve, I believe. So we'll change our setting on our test meter and see if that one is good. I'm slightly disappointed those two valves are good, because of course the oscillator's not working, and it would be awfully nice, wouldn't it, if it were just a valve. So let's test this ECC82 or 12AU7 and see what that comes back with. Good old faithful Mullard 12AU7 has come back as perfectly good after all this time. So that's wonderful, isn't it? EF86, I'll do that separately. And now finally the phase splitter, another Mullard CV4004. There we go, another 60-year-old Mullard valve, perfectly good on the tester. So that's good news. We don't have to run up a big bill changing valves. And in terms of originality, having all these Mullard valves in there is you know, a big selling point. We haven't tested a rectifier, but they either work or they don't, really, and they kind of soldier on. So that's that. So sort of disappointingly, we haven't got a quick fix on the vibrato circuit. Now I think next thing I'm going to do, because wouldn't it be nice to have this little thing completed with whatever valves these are here, what did I reckon they were, V5 and V7. It's a racing certainty that's V5. The first valve in the channel 2 preamp, and that is V7, the oscillator valve. But I'm just going to have a little trace of the circuit under here, eyeball, and see if I can find out that this does indeed go back to this channel. So let me do that. Right, so I've been on a little bit of a wild goose chase. I'm still not 100% sure yet, but in with the amplifier was this kind of handy crib sheet, which I didn't notice. And tells you everything you need to know about this. It's a VOX AC15 TV Front UK model, 3rd series wiring, serial number 4482, built in mid-1961, Celestion VOX Alnico speaker, capacitor date codes 1960, which would make sense for a 1961 build, and the foot switch. And this is the schematic for it, which is of course exactly the schematic we had. So we had the right schematic. Sorry about this shininess on here. We've got the right schematic. So what I'm going to do now is connect up a speaker and just double check that I wasn't fooling myself by you know, trying to plug into this channel to get the vibrato rather than this one. I'm pretty sure the vibrato is not working, but let's just double check that. Good, we are sort of getting there. It all takes time. It takes time to get your head around the schematic and the job that you're doing, and you know, get the lay of the land, and that can take a lot of time sometimes with an amplifier. Right, so I'll connect the speaker and just see what's going on here. Okay, this will give us a chance to test that our valves are working as well, our new valves. Sounds great. We're in the normal channel, which I call channel 2, and it is channel 2, look. And channel 1 is the vibrato channel. So let's go in there, turn down channel 2, turn up channel 1. Can't hear any vibrato there. Oh, we've got this foot switch thing. I think I'll just short out the foot switch with a crop clip. Something there. I can hear it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh yes. Oh, that's working. Oh, that's fantastic. Good. Well, it's stopped working now. Oh, that is there. I think that's sometimes working, sometimes not working. That's not working now. Okay, well, whether or not that's intermittent, we'll have a little play. Basically, that works, and so I was fooling myself with the fact that channel 1 is always the normal channel and channel 2 is always the vibrato channel on a Vox, but except for these early Voxes where it appears they've got it the other way around. And I was only tipped off by these white jack sockets here. Let's, whilst we're at it, have a little go at the foot switch. This is the original Jennings foot switch here, and we can test it on the meter actually. So okay, it's a little bit iffy. On, off, on, off, on. Is it the lead? Ah, see, that's not working now. Yeah, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Not working now. It might respond to a clean. It's obviously very old. Oh god, that's all completely glued in around there, so that's not going to be easy to get to. You can probably hear the oscillator oscillating nicely. I'm going to call it quits now for tonight. I'm quite pleased with the progress. We now know what's going on, and we also know, by the way, that this is, as we suspected, the preamp valve for channel 2, so that's V5. We can now fill in this as V5, which makes this the oscillator valve. No, not the oscillator valve, the, yes, it's the oscillator valve, V7. Yeah. The mixer is V6. So if I pull V7, it should stop oscillating. Ooh! Just stopped oscillating. Good. Put it back in, and that's now working fine. Right, slight question mark over whether that vibrato fades out now and then, or whether it's solid. I'm not quite sure. What's the time? Getting on a bit, and have my something to eat and call it a night. I'm quite pleased with the progress. It might be that we can get away without spending a lot of money on this amp, although of course it's worth a fortune. Thousands of pounds the amp is worth. So we don't have to be too stingy on what we do, but I certainly want to replace the bypass cap. Let me just have a quick look. I want to replace that cap there. I want to check the current by just measuring across that resistor what current is going through these valves, make sure the bias is not too hot. I think we can, because this amp's not going to be used a lot, it's mainly going to be just occasionally used. And if it's working and sounds okay, I'm tempted not to start pitching in there and changing all the electricity by these 25 microfarads at 25 volts. Yes, of course they need doing, and yes, of course we should change the HT cap and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they all need doing. But if the amp's working and we want to leave it as original as possible, I wonder if we need to do that. I think, and I'm suspecting that maybe we won't in this particular instance. It's you have heard me say this before. It's a constant balancing act between keeping something original and authentic in its Mullard valves and its original resistors and original capacitors, which makes for a high resale value, and stripping all out, new valves, new capacitors, new resistors, you know, new jacks, before you know it, you've got the 100-year-old broom which has only had 5 new handles and 6 new heads. You know, you get into that kind of situation. And the next person who buys it, it's not original, it's been hacked around, lots of components missing. So it's a tricky one. And I am completely guided by the customer on these matters. I don't even really have a view on it, actually. I'm very much guided by the customer. What the customer wants is what I will do. So in videos like this I get people shouting at me saying, oh, you should have changed that whilst you were in there, what a ridiculous waste of time, you got the chassis out, why didn't you do, and the answer is because I do what the customer wants me to, and anything else costs money. So if the customer tells me to do the minimum, that's what I'll do. If the customer tells me to completely refurbish it, no expense spared, that's what I'll do too. It's not my amp, I'm working for the customer. Okay, so nighty night. I will see you in the morning. Where's my teddy bear? I'm sure it's here somewhere. What's that, Pookie? Yes, we did have a lovely sleep last night, didn't we? It was very cosy in bed, and I hope you're all... Yes, sorry. So, welcome back to Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs, and today we're going to be looking at the I've lost my thread now. Yeah, we're going to be looking at the cathode bias part of the output valves. Sorry, a bit flustered there. Right, so let's have a look at the schematic and see what's going on there, so that we can measure the bias through those valves and make sure that they're running at about the right kind of current. Quick look at the schematic here. Here are the two EL84 power valves, and in their cathodes, look, they share a common power resistor. This 130 ohms, it looks like, I'm not sure, 5 watt resistor going down to ground. Doesn't look like it goes to ground, but it does. And it's bypassed by this capacitor here, which looks to be 50 microfarads, 50 volts. When I say bypassed, I mean AC bypass. So this looks like a short circuit to AC. I won't go into cathode biasing now. It's a way of biasing the current through the valves without using a trimmer pot. It has a couple of disadvantages actually. You lose a lot of power across this resistor, so you don't get full power out of the valves. Not sure why they've chosen to cathode bias this amp. So let's have a look at the corresponding part on the actual amplifier. Here we are. Here is the resistor. We'll measure that resistor to see what it is, and then of course once we've measured the resistor we can turn the amp on, measure the voltage across that resistor, and that will tell us the total current going through the pair of valves. We can then divide by 2 and find out if the current is sensible. I'm looking for 25 milliamps or something per valve. It's not super critical. And here is the bypass capacitor. and it's exactly, look at that, spot on 130 ohms after 60 years, not bad. And whilst we are here just for fun, this 1K5 should be high. So it is, look, it's 1K7. So carbon resistors tend to drift high, wire band resistors pretty much stay where. So now we're going to turn the amp on and measure the voltage across there and see what the total current going through two valves is. It's warming up, look, 9 volts, and that will stabilise down at a certain level, and then we can do some Ohm's law work and find out the current through the pair of valves. That looks like it's coming pretty much to the end of its run. Let's call it 11.8 volts. I don't think we'll be too far off there. So if you remember Ohm's law, V equals IR. We're interested in I, the current, voltage, current, resistance. So to get I, we take this underneath here and we get V upon R equals I. We know V, look, is our 11.8, was it? I can't remember. 11.8, doesn't matter, it's not super critical. And R is 130 ohms. I'll just do a quick calculation on that. So 11.8 divide 130 is, this is amps of course, 90 milliamps. Look, 1, 2, 3 decimal places along gives you 90 milliamps, which is 45 milliamps per valve, which is on the hot side. I know a lot of these amps, they do like to run those EL84s hot, and that is fairly hot. But don't forget now, well, don't forget, let me show you. In order to work out the dissipation in this valve, it's not really the milliamps, of course that's important, it's also the voltage. Power, of course, as you know, is a function of voltage and the amps going through it. So this calls for a 310 volt HT, which is not very high actually, but it's not quite 310 volts because if you remember, we dropped 10 or 11 volts across here, so there's only actually 300 volts across the EL84. So let's now go to Weber bias calculator and see what the optimum dissipation for an EL84 running at what effectively a 300 volt plate voltage is. So here's our Weber, Ted Weber, www.tedweber.com, and let's set for EL84 already. I'll put 300 volts in. 300. Calculate bias, look, 28 milliamps. So see, 45 is very much on the hot side there. Now, it's interesting, you know, we have a dilemma here, as we always do with these old amplifiers. There's nothing faulty about this amp. If that resistor was out of tolerance, we could trim it and bring it back up. The voltages here are as designed. The amp is running as designed, and they have chosen to put 45 milliamps through each valve, and it's been running for 60 years. So although that's way on the high side for my liking, like 50% too high, a lot of EL84 amplifiers do run the EL84s hot. If we wanted to, we could increase that resistor value there to 170 ohm 5 watt or something, and that would bring the current down. However, that's now moving it out of how it was designed to run, and there's no fault here. It's working as designed, and that's the sound that the amplifier designers wanted, and that's the sound that the users want, so I'm not going to mess with the bias on that. The result of this will be that these EL84s have a shorter life than they would normally, because they're running hot basically. Okay, I managed to get the foot switch going by virtue of spraying a bit of deoxit D5 down inside it, and that seems to have worked wonders. So that's good, which means we can keep absolutely the original switch there too. Right, I'm doing a little bit of work on the oscillator section here, because though the oscillator works, it's a little reluctant to oscillate sometimes, and the higher speed, there are 3 speeds on this, it doesn't oscillate at all, it just kind of falls over. So I have already changed the 3K, let me just have a look at the schematic here. So here's the oscillator. I measured this 3K9 cathode resistor, it's about 4.6. So I've changed that. I've also changed that bypass capacitor there, and that's made it a lot more solid. I'm now just going to check this anode resistor here, which should be 270K. That's the component I've changed there, and the one underneath it. And this is the 270K anode resistor here. And when we measure it, look, you can see the meter there, yeah, so 270K. You can measure it in circuit, it's 335K, so it's incredibly high, 50K. So I'm going to change that one too, and hope that gives the oscillator a little bit more stability. So we're going to pop that one in there, like that. Okay, those mods I've done have greatly improved the oscillator stability. There is the new 270K resistor, replacing this, no, not that one, replacing this one, which is about 340K, and that makes a big difference to the current going through the valve. So now that's the slow vibrato speed, middling, and fast. And before, the fast wasn't working. So I'm really pleased about that. Now, look, another good thing here is we're not messing with the audio sound of this amplifier. It's just the vibrato, it's just making it go up and down. So the fact we've changed these components has no effect whatsoever on the tone of this amplifier. Now, I've been having a think about this amp, and I've decided I'm not going to do any more work on it. The only work I would contemplate, and I'm not going to do it, is to change all of these 25 microfarad, well, these two 25 microfarad capacitors here, bypass capacitors, and then also start changing HT smoothing capacitors, so this one and the ones on the other side. But the amp is working, and here's the important thing, it is not a gig critical amplifier. This amp is hardly going to be used actually, and that makes a difference, you see, because if you're talking about changing components on spec, why are you doing it? Well, the answer is, well, in case it fails. You know, the components are getting old, they're well past their sell-by date, you should change them because they will fail. Well, okay, they may fail in the next 10-20 years, but it's not critical. So if it fails, this is not being gigged, this amp. The only result will be the amp stops working, or if HT cap goes, you get a bit of hum on the amp, in which case you can bring it back to me to have the HT caps changed. So I think that's a kind of important principle here. In terms of any maintenance really, you only change components on spec if you think that the failure of the amp is very critical. In other words, you're in the middle of a gig and the amp fails. You don't really want that. If the amp's a museum piece, hardly going to be used, or just occasionally used in a studio or at home, then it doesn't matter if it fails. You just bring it in and I'll fix it for you. But so the other important principle of an amp like this is authenticity, and you want to keep the amp as authentic as possible because it's a very valuable amplifier. It's probably worth, I don't know, it could be £6,000 or something. We're talking quite a lot of money, and you could knock £1,000 off the value, no problem whatsoever, if someone looks inside it and sees, oh, that capacitor's been changed, those have been changed, that's all changed, it's all been upgraded. People want the authentic originality. I won't get involved in what I think about that, but that's what they want. So we could lose a grand on the price of this amp just by messing around with it. So I think I'm going to leave well enough alone. It also keeps the bill down for the customer. And with an amp like this, you can go on and on and on. All of these carbon resistors, every single one, I guarantee you, will be out of tolerance. They'll all be high, and they all need changing. So you're looking at changing every single resistor. I don't know what the tolerance on these caps are. They're probably all drifted. All the HT caps, all these caps here, and before you know it, what's left of the original amp. So just to prove that to you, let's pick a resistor at random. This 22k resistor here. Meter on it. 24k. 22k. Look. Another 22k resistor here. 27k, nearly 28k, look. Way out of tolerance. 10k here. 11.5k. Every single one of these resistors is wrong. 220k resistor here. 290k, look. Actually, where is that 220k resistor? That is... ah, it's that one there. Yes, I'm wondering if we should try do that one as well, because that also is in the oscillator section. Yeah, I'm going to change that one just because you know, we want the oscillator to be as good as possible. So I'm going to change that one as well. This by the way is a depth preset, so we can we'll fiddle with the depth and see how we like that as well. Anyway, so just to finish up what I was saying, you can see every single resistor on here is out of tolerance and needs changing. And then you end up with an amp that's been completely upgraded, completely modified, and it's lost a lot of its value. It's the same in everything, the same as, you know, classic cars or whatever. I don't know much about classic cars, by the way, but I'd imagine that if you change the carburettor for a brand new carburettor, which is 5 times better than the original carburettor, it would reduce the value of it. And people want a 1930s original Morris carburettor, whatever it was, which was probably a piece of crap back in its day, but that's what they want, you know. So you know, you can't argue with the market. Right, we'll change that one, make sure the oscillator still works, have a fiddle with this depth preset, and then you know what, I'm going to call it a day on this amplifier. Well, I don't think changing that 220k has made that much difference. Here's the speed, here's the preset for the depth of the vibrato, so you can see it comes up, that's quite deep, and that's very shallow. That's working nicely now. Great. Well, I just thought I'd let you know I've spent over 2 hours chasing a fault on this amp. Basically, wherever you touched the board or the chassis, it made a kind of sort of noise, you know. Those faults are exceptionally difficult to find because obviously if you go like this, you know, nothing, 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 you can locate it around this area. But if wherever you tap, even for me it was like literally anywhere I touched you know, my pointer, it would make that noise. Eventually I tracked it down to, it had a kind of earthy feel to me, like, you know, an earth was off or something. Eventually I had to tighten up the nut on one of these pots. It wasn't even particularly loose. When I tightened it up really tight, that went away. So that was a hard one. Now I've got another fault on the amp, and by the way, you know, I just want to let you know that on an amplifier like this, you can go on and on and on and on and on, you know, you can spend 100 hours on an amp like this without any problem whatsoever. So you have to call it a day at some point. Anyway, there's another problem here in that when you turn up channel 2, can you hear that hum? I've narrowed that down to this dual HT cap here. In fact, you can see it's very bulgy on the end. If I can show you that. See, it looks a little bit sort of bulgy on the end there. And what I've done is I've just dabbed another capacitor across it, and the hum goes down. So, let me see if I can show you that. So what I've got is a 47 microfarad at 450 volts, just on a couple of crock clips here. Obviously I have to be incredibly careful here, and I'm just going to connect this to ground here. I'm going to dab this amplifier, sorry, I'm going to dab this capacitor across here. So if you have a listen to the hum, look, it'll make a big pop as the cap charges up. Have a listen to the hum. That's the cap charged up. So with cap, without cap, with cap, without cap. Hopefully you can hear the difference there, and I'll just discharge this, look. So this dual cap here, I need to replace it really. Dual HT cap. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I've just made up this dual cap with a couple of 47 microfarad, what are they? Yeah, 47 microfarad, 350 volts. So they will go in there. Actually, they'll look the other way around, like that. And I've taken the decision to leave this one in situ. I'll obviously cut the leads off, and we're going to attach the new ones to there with this cable tie. And the reason for that is, again, authenticity. Someone in the future may want to, I don't know, take that cap out, hollow it out or something, and put two capacitors in and make it look more authentic. I don't know. I'm probably being a bit purist, but I think we'll just leave that in situ, and that just allows someone else to restore it back to totally original if they absolutely want to. They can't use that capacitor, of course, because it's one side of it is down. So I'll now just put that in there, and we'll turn it on, make sure it works. And then I want to really call it a day on this amp. I've been quite a few hours on it, maybe 8 in total, which is a lot of time. Okay, that's the capacitor wired in, look. One to there, and one to there, that to the earth, and then so all we need to do now is to secure it to there, and we're ready to test. So there we are, quite a neat job that, and one that's reversible should anybody want to reverse it. And it's made a big difference. The volume's about 3/4 of the way up now, and it's a slight background time. That's full, and that's perfectly acceptable. And that's the other volume control. So it's still got a little bit of a grumble, this amp, but I'm not going to do any more on it. Just occasionally gives a little spit and a pop, but you could spend 8 hours chasing that. So that's, I'm going to call it a day on that amp, and I think we've done a fair bit, and obviously we can go on and on. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. A very interesting, rare amplifier, and of course, you might have different views on me to how best to restore this, but I can only do what I think is best, and liaise with the customer and get his view, and do the best I can on it. And my view was to kind of leave well enough alone just to get the basics working, make sure the amp functions, and then leave the rest as authentic as possible. Well, that's it from me. Thanks for watching as always. I'll catch you on the next video.